Arts serve as our medium to express our cultural and individual identities. Everything around us may be a product of a simple imagination, which turned into a work of art. Today, let's discuss the artistic works produced in a certain period of time. This is Mr. Glenn Rivera, your arts teacher, and together, let's explore the beauty of modern arts. What is modern art? Who are the famous artists from the various movements of modern arts? What are the distinct characteristics of their works that make their pieces special among others? But wait, before you answer these questions, let's first have some reminders as you listen and participate.
Be on time. Use your prescribed profile picture. Use your complete and real name. Always participate in a discussion with cooperation, respect, and discipline. Use the comment box for raising related inquiries, questions, and clarifications. Sit comfortably.
This time, for you to be guided in our discussion, let me present to you the most essential learning competencies that you will develop after our lesson. Number 1. Analyzes art elements and principles in the production of work following a specific art style from the various art movements. Second, identifies distinct characteristics of arts from the various art movements. Third, reflects on and derive the mood, idea, or message from selected artworks. Fourth, uses artworks to derive the traditions, history of the various art movements. Fifth, explains the role or function of artworks by evaluating their utilization and combination of art elements and principles. Since we will be discussing the background and characteristics of modern art, it is going to be helpful for us to review the basic elements of art. These are the basic elements that are used by artists in creating their pieces. They are what you use to create an aesthetically pleasing work. When we make art, we need to understand and apply these 7 elements. Number 1 is line. It is a mark made by a pointed tool like a brush, pen, or a stick. It is also a moving point. Color. It is one of the most dominant elements. It is created by lights. There are 3 properties of color: hue, value, and intensity. Form. Objects that are 3-dimensional, having length, width, and height. They can be viewed from many sides. Forms take up space and volume. Next, we have shape, a flat and closed area that has 2 dimensions, the length and the width. Artists use both geometric and organic shapes. Next, we have value, degrees of lightness or darkness. And the difference between values is called value control. Texture, it describes the feel of an actual surface. The surface quality of an object can be real or implied. Alright students, I have here a picture of an artwork from one of the art movements we're going to discuss today. As I show you this, could you please tell me your impression? It may be a single word or a statement which you may type in our comment box. is nice to see that you have different impressions based on the picture that I have presented. The title of this artwork is Impression Sunrise, or in French, Soleil Levant. It is a painting by Claude Monet, first shown at what would become known as the Exhibition of the Impressionists. It is in Paris in April 1874. Now, let's proceed to our main lesson. In all of human history, art has mirrored life in the community, society, and the world. In all its colors, lines, shapes, and forms. The same has been true in the last 2 centuries, with world events and global trends being reflected in the art movements. The decades from 1900 to the present have seen the human race living on an ever-shrinking planet. The 20th century saw a boom in the interchange of ideas, beliefs, values, and lifestyles that continues to bring the citizens of the world closer together. To give you an overview, here are the art movements I'm talking about: Impressionism, Post-Impressionism, and Expressionism. Not just these 3, because we're going to discuss other art movements next live stream class. Impressionism was an art movement that emerged in the second half of the 19th century among a group of Paris-based artists. The duration of the Impressionist movement itself was quite short, less than 20 years from 1872 to the mid-1880s. But it had a tremendous impact and influence on the painting styles that followed, such as Neo-Impressionism, Post-Impressionism, Fauvism, and Cubism, and even the artistic styles and movements of today. The term precisely captured what this group of artists sought to represent in their works: the viewer's momentary impression of an image. It was not intended to be clear or precise, but more like a fleeting fragment of reality caught on canvas, sometimes in mid-motion, and other times awkwardly positioned, just as it would be in real life. The way Impressionists paint is different from the way the arts were at that time. Impressionist paintings have distinct characteristics. These involve their use of color, choice of subject matter and setting, and technique for capturing light and conveying movement. So, what are these characteristics? Number 1, we have the color and light. In contrast, the Impressionists painted with freely brushed colors that conveyed more of a visual effect than a detailed rendering of the subject. They used short, broken strokes that were intentionally made visible to the viewer. They also often placed pure and mixed colors side by side, rather than blended smoothly or shaded. Next, we have everyday subjects. They presented ordinary people seemingly caught off guard, doing everyday tasks, at work or at a leisure, or doing nothing at all. Next, we have painting outdoors. The location in which the Impressionists painted was also different. Previously, portraits and landscapes were usually painted inside the studio. Impressionists found that they could best capture the ever-changing effects of light on color by painting outdoors in natural light. And also, the open composition. Impressionist painting also moved away from the formal, structured approach to placing and positioning their subjects. They experimented with unusual visual angles, sizes of objects that appeared out of proportion, off-center placement, and empty spaces on the canvas. Well, here are the prominent artists in the Impressionism movement. First, we have Edouard Manet, 1832 to 1883. He was one of the first 19th century artists to depict modern life subjects. He was a key figure in the transition from realism to Impressionism, with a number of his works considered as marking the birth of modern art. We also have Claude Monet from 1840 to 1926. He was one of the founders of the Impressionist movement, along with his friends Auguste Renoir, Alfred Sisley, and Frédéric Bazin. He was the most prominent of the group and is considered the most influential figure in the movement. Monet is best known for his landscape paintings, particularly those depicting his beloved flower gardens and water lily ponds at his home. We also have Auguste Renoir, 1841 to 1919. Along with Claude Monet, he was one of the central figures of the Impressionist movement. His early works were snapshots of real life, full of sparkling color and light. By the mid-1880s, however, Renoir broke away from the paintings of Impressionist movement to apply a more disciplined, formal technique to portraits of actual people and figure paintings. Now, let's move on to Post-Impressionism. Are you familiar with this painting? Can you please tell me how are you going to describe this artwork? You may type your answer in our comment box. Very good! This painting is a well-known artwork of Vincent van Gogh. After the brief yet highly influential period of Impressionism, an outgrowth movement known as Post-Impressionism emerged. The European artists who were at the forefront of this movement continued using the basic qualities of the Impressionists before them: the vivid colors, heavy brush strokes, and true-to-life subjects. However, they expanded and experimented with these in bold new ways, like using a geometric approach, fragmenting objects, and distorting people's faces and body parts, and applying colors that were not necessarily realistic or natural. Two of the foremost post-impressionisms were Paul Cézanne and Vincent van Gogh. What I have shown you a while ago is an example of a very famous artwork of Vincent van Gogh entitled Starry Night. Alright, this time, let's talk about Expressionism, a bold new movement. In the early 1900s, there arose in the Western art world a movement that came to be known as Expressionism. Expressionist artists created works with more emotional force rather than with realistic or natural images. To achieve this, they distorted outlines, applied strong colors and exaggerated forms. They worked more with their imagination and feelings rather than with what their eyes saw in the physical world. Among the various styles that arose within the Expressionist art movements were Neo-Primitivism, Fauvism, Dadaism, Surrealism, and Social Realism. Now let's talk about these five. First, we have Neo-Primitivism. It was an art style that incorporated elements from the native arts of the South Sea Islanders and the wood carvings of African tribes, which suddenly became popular at that time. Fauvism was a style that used bold, vibrant colors and visual distortions. Its name was derived from le fauve, which means wild beast, referring to the group of French expressionist painters who painted in this style. Dadaism was a style characterized by dream fantasies, memory images, and visual tricks and surprises, as in the paintings of Marc Chagall and Giorgio de Chirico below. Although the works appeared playful, the movement arose from the pain that a group of European artists felt after the suffering brought by World War I. Next, we have Surrealism. It was a style that depicted an illogical, subconscious dream world beyond the logical, conscious physical one. Its name came from the term super-realism, with its artworks clearly expressing a departure from reality
as though the artists were dreaming, seeing illusions, or experiencing an altered mental state. The movement known as social
Realism expressed the artist's role in social reform. Here, artists used their works to protest against the injustices, like inequalities, immorality, and ugliness of the human condition. In different periods of history, social realists have addressed different issues like war, poverty, corruption, industrial and environmental hazards, and more in the hope of raising people's awareness and pushing society to seek reforms. To evaluate our learning today, let's have a short exercise. Answer the following questions by typing the letter of your answer in our comment box in 5 seconds. Ready? Let's start.
What is this art movement that emerged in the second half of the 19th century among a group of Paris-based artists? What is this art movement where artists expanded and experimented bold new ways in style like distortion and geometric approach? What is this art movement where artists created works with more emotional force rather than with realistic or natural images? Who among the following artists is known in his works under Impressionism style?
Another activity I have prepared for you is called Picture Me. I will be showing you a set of pictures of different pieces and you will tell me the art movement it belongs. Analyze the characteristic of each artwork to help you identify its style.